This happened a few years ago while I was living in Mississauga, Ontario. I'm a female at the time. I was 21. It was a very sunny afternoon day in early spring. I walked to Shoppers Drug Mart to buy something. Can't remember what it was. And as I was leaving the plaza, I saw a white middle-aged man walking toward the plaza. As we passed, he smiled at me and said hi, and being early spring, I was in a very good mood, so I smiled and said hi back. I seldom acknowledge strangers that address me, but he looked very dad-like, if that makes sense. So he seemed less threatening. I continued walking out of the plaza and turned onto Floridale Drive, a residential street. I only ever took this route if I was going to the park that's located at the other end of the street, which is where I plan to go. I lived in that area for years, and it's not a main road and uncommon for people to take that route. The road is narrow because of all the cars parked on the sides of the road, and there's only one sidewalk. The majority of the people I've seen are the families who live on the street. As I mentioned, it was a very sunny day. I had been walking for less than a minute when I turned around and saw the same man was behind me. He was about 15 feet behind me. I didn't think of anything of it. I continued walking when I glanced down and I noticed a shadow casted from behind me by my feet. So I turned around and the man was now 5 feet away from me. I picked up my pace and tried to rationalize. Maybe he decided against the store and is going home. To reassure myself that this was the case, I crossed onto the side of the street with no sidewalk. I knew he would have no reason to follow me onto the side of the street. After I crossed, I waited a few seconds before I turned around, and there he was, behind me again. I tried to rationalize, maybe he lives on this side of the street, again to reassure myself. I crossed back to the other side with the sidewalk. If he did live on that side of the street, there would be no reason he would have to cross over again. But to my surprise, he crossed over again and still behind me. I was really panicked and decided I was going to go home instead of to the park. I didn't want him to follow me there and be able to approach me. When I got to the end of the residential street, I took a sharp left turn and started running home. I didn't think he would continue to follow me because I had just turned onto a busier street with more cars, and it was during daylight. I turned around as I was running, and I saw this fucker running after me. I looked ahead and noticed there was a red light, no crossing ahead. I didn't want to stop at the intersection and let him catch up to me, so I took a risk and ran through traffic. When I got to the other side, I turned around and saw him standing there. He just stood there for a few seconds before he smiled and turned back around to where we just came from and walked away. I backed away slowly, continuing to look to make sure he wasn't going to turn back around and chase me. Luckily, he didn't, and I immediately ran home. I'm still not sure what he was planning to do, but if he caught me, but I'm happy I never found out. This happened to me in 2008 in Las Vegas. I was living with my husband and our son, who was about 2 years old at the time. Well, I would frequently take our son to the grocery store early evening with me to do some shopping and give my hubby some alone time. I never really worried. The store was literally right outside my neighborhood. Plus, I lived in a decent neighborhood. I finished my shopping and put my son in his car seat. By the time I finished loading the car, he was passed out, so I decided to quickly fill my tank at the gas station on the other side of the parking lot. While I was pumping gas, a big truck pulls up to the opposite side of my pump. The man pumps his gas and seems to take no notice of me and leaves. As I'm finishing, the truck suddenly pulls up next to my car, and a man who looks like he loves meth says, "Excuse me, miss, but I just felt compelled to tell you how beautiful you are. As a matter of fact, the only reason I came to get gas here is because I saw you come here from the grocery store and just had to be nearer to you." I've been trying to get the courage to approach you for a while." I was flattered, thanked him for the compliment, but quickly informed him I was off the market. He responded, "I know it was worth a shot," and began to pull off. Suddenly he backed up and said, "If you tell your husband what I said, I'll kill him," then drove off. Needless to say, this freaked me out, so I immediately called my husband. He told me not to come directly home in case the guy follows me, so I drove around until I felt that I lost him. Then I went home. My husband and I went over and over again how he could possibly kill my husband if he doesn't know him or where we live. Then some of the things he said started to ring in my head, like how he'd been watching me at the grocery store, and I started to think how many days he's seen me there. How I told him I was married. He said he knew. Is it possible that he has followed me home on previous occasions? We put extra locks on the doors, took extra precautions, and tried to forget about it. He was probably just some crazy guy, right? Well, about a week later, around about 8 or 9 p.m., my husband decided to run up to the gas station to get cigarettes. I was sitting on the computer in our dining room as he left through the garage door with our son sleeping in his bedroom on the other side of the house. A minute later, he left. I heard the garage door into the laundry room open and somebody came in. I immediately assumed it was my husband grabbing something he forgot. I called out to him and didn't get a response, so I called his name again and received no answer, but could hear someone moving around in the laundry room. I started to worry. All the guns in the house were in our room. I would have to walk right past the laundry room to get to them. Suddenly, I heard my 2 pit bulls from my room start growling. Both dogs started barking viciously and ran towards the laundry room, at which point I heard the laundry room door open to the garage and slam shut very quickly. At that point, I grabbed my phone and ran into my son's room and called my husband to ask him if he had just returned home for something. To my horror, he said no. He was at the gas station. I told him someone was in the house, but I think the dogs had scared him out. He instructed me to stay in our son's room with the door closed, that he was on his way home. So I sat in the dark next to my sleeping son in terror. 2 minutes later, I heard the dogs barking and someone came into the house again through the garage door. After what felt like forever, my husband came into our son's room. He checked the whole house, all around our property, but could not find anybody. We came to the conclusion that the stalker from the gas station must have finally taken his opportunity to catch me alone, and based on what the creepy tweaker had said to me, who else could it have been? What really freaked me out is not knowing how long he had been watching me for before that. How long he had been watching me before he approached me at the gas station and before he came into our home. It really opened my eyes that someone could stalk you without you ever knowing about it until it's too late. I believe my 2 pit bulls saved my life, my son's life, and possibly my husband's too that night. That had my husband not let the dogs in the house before he left, I wouldn't be here right now, nor would my son. And to this day, anytime I have to be home alone or my new husband and I are sleeping, I have to have my pit bull inside to watch over me. I thank God every day for my pit bull and the unconditional love and protection she provides me and my family.